Children, today we are going to start with the second chapter of your geography lesson, Inside Our Earth. Now, what are we going to learn in this lesson? Let me tell you. So, we are going to learn the interiors of the earth, what is inside the earth, what is the earth made of, components of the earth, how rocks are formed, types of rocks, and uses of rocks. So, these are the main headings of your chapter, which we are going to cover in detail. Children, the only planet that has been discovered so far that supports life happens to be our home planet, Earth, isn't it? And it's a dynamic planet. What do you mean by dynamic planet? It means that things keep changing, okay? Outside the Earth as well as inside the Earth. Now, outside the Earth, we can see all the changes that takes place in the landforms, okay? But what happens inside the earth? We must know, it is important to know what happens inside our earth because it provides us with everything we need to know in order to survive. Okay, so let me tell you, earth was born 5 million years ago. Now, all of you know that there was a huge bang in the universe, yes, and with that big bang, our earth was formed. When it was formed, it was a huge ball of fire, and then it started cooling down. And once it started cooling down, the upper layer of the earth got hardened. Okay, like I'll give you an example of a samosa. All of us love samosas, isn't it? So when it is fried in the oil and taken out, you can find that the crust of the samosa gets hard immediately on cooling. But when you cut it, you find that the masala or the potato inside the samosa is still hot, and you'll have to wait for a longer time to really eat the, the masala and the crust together. Okay, so our earth was also like that. So the outer layer, just like the outer crust of the samosa, gets cool and becomes hard, but still the inner layers of our earth are still hot and in a liquid state. Okay, so we must know what is there inside our earth, and today we are going to study about it. Children, just like an onion has many concentric layers, so does our earth also has these layers. You can see here, these are the layers of the earth, one inside the other. These are concentric layers, just like an onion. We can also compare it to a egg, boiled egg. Okay, so you can see it is similar to a boiled egg. How is it similar? You can see the shell, that is the white color, is the crust, which is hard. Then the egg white part, you can see, is the mantle, and the yolk, that is the yellow part, is our core. So we can compare the layers of the earth to an onion or a boiled egg. Children, now let us look into the layers of the earth. You can see here clearly, yes, this part that you see, the outer part is the crust, which is the hardest layer. Then underneath is the mantle. Then we have outer core, which is the red part, and inner core, which is the yellow part. So these are basically the layers of the earth, which we will learn in detail. This is a cross section of the earth that I have shown you, and we will learn about this in detail. Children, let's talk about the crust, okay, the outermost layer of the earth. So we live on the earth's crust. We all live on the earth's crust. It is a layer of rocks which is about 30 kilometers thick. Okay, that might seem thick, but it is actually very thin considering the size of the earth. The earth is huge, so 30 kilometers of thickness means it is very, very thin. So as you see, as the earth is cooling down, only so much has become hard. 30 kilometers have become hard. The rest is still in a semi-liquid state or a molten state. Okay, So we have to see, so how can we describe the crust? That it is the outermost, thinnest, solid layer of the earth, and it is brittle too. We see that the earth's crust is broken into large pieces and it is floating on the mantle. I'll tell you about this later. And these broken pieces are called as tectonic plates. Okay, now if I take a piece, as I cut the cake, you can see this is a piece of the cake. You know how when we cut a cake and take out the piece, it resembles like this. Okay, so you can see all that is the brown area, and the blue area is our crust. Okay, now it is a very thin layer in comparison to other layers which we are going to study. Now the earth's crust consists of two layers, okay, which is called as the continental crust and the oceanic crust. We will learn about them. Then this is a section of a cake that I have taken out. When we cut a cake and we take out a triangular piece, then you can see all the layers of the earth, isn't it? And the topmost part is the crust. You can see it's the crust, and it is the very thin layer in comparison to the other layers of the earth which we are going to study. Now you can see clearly here that the crust, all this brown area is the crust. Okay, so and there are two types of crust. One, we have continental crust here, and then below the ocean, this is our ocean, and below that we have oceanic crust. Okay, so we can say we have two types of crust: continental crust and oceanic crust. So children, you can see, as I told you, two types of crust: continental crust and oceanic crust, that is below the ocean. Okay, now below the ocean, it is very dense. It is made up of basalt, and continental crust, it is less dense and it is made up of granite. So children, you can see another view of the oceanic crust and continental crust. Yes. Children, the oceanic crust is mostly consist of two minerals, silica and magnesium. That is how it has got the name as SiMa. Si for silica, Ma for magnesium, which is very dense. Okay, so that is why it is sunk below. And while the continental crust consists of two elements called silica and aluminum. Si for silica and alumina for Al is for alumina. Okay, and that is why it is above the ocean. So we can say there are two types of crust, children. Which are the two types of crust? Oceanic crust and continental crust. Now this crust, as I told you, it is broken up into pieces earlier also, which float on the mantle and are always moving. This I'll explain to you when we are doing mantle. Okay. Children, the oceanic crust is thinner under the ocean and thicker under the continents. Children, as I told you, it is thin under the ocean. It is only 5 kilometers thick under the ocean and about 35 kilometers under the continents. Okay, so total around 40 kilometers of crust we have on our earth, which is one of the outermost, thinnest solid layer of the earth. So children, let us revise what is crust. It is the uppermost, the outermost layer of the earth. It is the thinnest of all the layers. It is 35 kilometers thick on the continental mass and only 5 kilometers thick on the ocean floor. And we must remember there are two types of crust: continental crust and oceanic crust. Continental crust are made up of which elements? Silica and aluminium. So it is called as Sial. And oceanic crust is made up of silica and magnesium, which is called as SiMa. Okay, so that is all about the crust.